So I hope everyone's had a happy new year and welcome back to episode 5. Today's topic, Gabs, is...
Running.
Thank you. Well, that was a long break. I was thinking,
Is it good for you?
have you forgotten?
Sorry, I literally went for a little bit of a mind blank right there.
Okay, yeah. So today we're discussing running. Is it good for you? Because it's a question, well, not necessarily a question, a statement I hear a lot from patients who, when I say they've got an injury, maybe from running or repetitively running, they go, oh, so running isn't good for you. Or some people joke about like exercise and currently say, isn't running bad for your knees and things like that. And is that true?
So, there are pros and cons to both sides, in my opinion.
100%.
I think with everything that you do, there are always going to be pros and cons. There is no such thing as black or white, there's always going to be a grey area. And in my opinion, running has great benefits.
Lots
Number
of them.
one being cardiovascular training. So
Yeah, by running you can reduce the risk of suffering from many health conditions, cardiovascular ones being a perfect example, but
Yeah,
also things
heart
like
disease.
type 2 diabetes
yeah,
as well.
very easy examples right there.
Yeah.
However, then we can also add it onto things to do with the musculoskeletal system, so bone, muscles. By running, what you're doing is you're creating impact with the floor. That impact on the floor, as we've discussed in our previous episodes, actually does osteoblastic components into the bones.
So therefore laying bone material down, making them stronger.
Exactly.
As discussed in Mythbusters.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. So it just keeps on building towards that benefit there. However, there is a limit. Number one, if you run too much, then what you're going to get is degenerative developments that are going to occur.
Yeah.
But that only really occurs up to a certain limit. So a very good example is 10K is lovely.
Yeah.
21, you're pushing it. 42K, you are just looking for your knees to just collapse.
But it's also how vigorous you're doing the running as well, how much you're pushing
that's true.
yourself
That's
as
true.
well. And what kind of ground you're running on, your footwear. Footwear is incredibly important when it comes to running as well. A statistic is that you should change your running shoes every 100 miles.
Wow.
As well, that's it, yeah.
Wow.
And when you say it doesn't sound like a lot, but 100 miles is quite a bit. If you're a fair runner,
Yeah.
you know, you've got to make sure your shoes, because basically what happens is the rubber starts to lose its its
Elasticity.
absorption. Yeah. So therefore it doesn't absorb the forces as well. So normally if you look at the shoe, at the base of the shoe, and you start to see wrinkle marks in it, it's a good sign that maybe it's time to start changing up your shoes for running. You can continue to wear them for normal day-to-day life, but running, not necessarily.
I was just about to say, because yesterday we walked 23,000 steps, and that's approximately 21 kilometers.
Yeah.
So we're looking at just that, being 9 miles, 10 miles.
That's it. So walking's fine
Yeah.
because it's not as heavy impact. That's the big deal with it.
Yeah.
Because if your shoes aren't absorbing the impact, more force is going
Good
up
to
into your
clarify
knee,
that.
which therefore is going to potentially cause problems. But with running, it's more necessarily about, are you doing an effective warm-up to prevent injuries? So, you're doing dynamic exercises, not your static stretching. You're preparing the muscle is the key thing for it. So doing things like little knee ups or opening the gate, closing the gate kind of exercise to warm the muscles up. Is your footwear correct to reduce the chance of injury? Are you giving yourself days off to rest and recover, allow the muscle to heal? Because a lot of people are like, I do 5Ks every day. And then they're surprised that they get things like shin splints, plantar fasciitis, and all these other type of injuries later on. When actually, if you manage yourself better, you're less likely to cause injury.
So I've got a little bit of a question for you,
Thank you.
George, because you've done a triathlon pretty recently.
A couple, yeah.
So if we are going to look at your triathlon, what was the training like in preparation for that? Because realistically speaking, so when I did my half marathon,
Yes.
what I did was I tried to make sure I was increasing incrementally 2 kilometers every single week.
Okay, yeah.
Just trying to
So
make
it's
sure
a
that I was
gradual
ready for
build,
it.
yeah.
And then
How many times were you running a week?
it was 4 times.
Okay, so so there's a fair rest day in between as well.
Yeah, and then 4 days before the run, I stopped completely.
Yeah.
Just to give myself a little bit of a rest.
Yeah.
And I probably did a very light jog of 2-3 kilometers the day before, just to keep myself moving.
Yeah.
And then did the half marathon.
Okay, yeah, that's a good way of doing it. Gradual build up, preparing yourself for it. So basically, the triathlon, I signed up for that in December 2021 because I needed something to distract me mental-wise. Like I needed something to keep my mind occupied when I wasn't at work, and I wanted to be healthier as well. So I signed up for my mate and had no intention of actually training or doing it. Like I was thinking, but then when I signed up for it, I was like, I've got to do this now. So I was very lucky with having a training partner who's done triathlons before, Dan Collis, another very good osteopath who works in London. And he's also the vice president of the Institute of Osteopathy.
That's a pretty big thing to say.
Yeah. But yeah, I was lucky to have him as a training partner, and I got some tips off of him. But at the same time, I like going to the gym and training muscle. So I was having to balance it out with those. So like doing maybe a 45-minute cycle and then a gym workout on the weights, or then fitting in 2 swims a week, fitting in 2 runs a week. So the good thing with training for a triathlon is that my training was quite well spread out. So I had to hit 3 different disciplines. So I'd do 2 runs a week, plus a cycle, plus a swim or 2 a week. So it was kind of breaking those up and going a little bit lighter on my gym workouts as well. And making sure I was eating enough calories was important.
Okay,
the muscles can heal and recover.
Yeah.
Because I'm burning a lot of energy.
Yeah,
Keeping hydrated was important. But I did suffer quite a few injuries because I was overload training. I was training 6 times a week.
Whoa.
It wasn't like running every day,
Yeah.
but I was still training 6 times a week.
Yeah.
And I went into my actual triathlon in France with 2 groin strains that was maybe slightly pushed a bit too early back to, and I ended up cramping up on the last 10k. I ended up cramping up and straining both my hip flexors and also pulling my hamstring quite badly, and so I hobbled across the line. But it's just because sadly I'm injury prone.
Yeah.
But also when you train for something like that in such a short space of time, you've got to be lucky not to get injuries, no matter how good your preparation is and how well you prepare a muscle. Injuries are going to occur sometimes.
Yeah.
It's how you kind of work through those.
That's true.
It's just a bit unlucky sometimes. But in a lot of cases, if you just do running, injuries are quite easily avoidable.
Yeah.
And that's what the most important thing is with this. And that running, the myth of running's bad for my knees isn't actually, it's a myth. That's a myth in itself.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of positive. Actually, by doing running, the chance of developing things like osteoarthritis in the knees in the future is actually reduced because you've got better muscle tone in the area.
We're going to stop it there. Shall we wait until? Because that's going to probably come up.
What?
The drilling outside. Can I hear it?
Okay, well I think we should just bin this episode off then.
The jackhammer. So let's pause it. Let's listen. If the jackhammer does not actually, you can't hit jackhammer at all, then we can just carry on as normal.
Oh no, it's now I need to stop the recording completely.
And we link the 2. Although without jackhammer,
Oh, it's going to be there all day now, so. Ain't nothing we can do about it.
what is he doing it? Is it on the road?
Both my hip flexors and also pulling my hamstring quite badly, and so I hobbled across the line. But it's just because sadly I'm injury prone, easily avoidable, and that's what the most important thing is with this. And that running, the myth of running's bad for my knees isn't actually, it's a myth. That's a myth in itself. Because there's a lot of positive. Actually, by doing running, the chance of developing things like osteoarthritis in your knees in the future is actually reduced because you've got better muscle tone in the area.
Are you fucking stupid then? It's not a jackhammer. You know what it is? It's a pressure washer.
Not even coming up on this. The chance of developing things like osteoarthritis in your knees in the future is actually reduced because you've got better muscle tone in the area.
I'm going to stop it there. Shall we? That's going to probably come.
What? Okay, well I think we should just put this episode off then.
Okay. Where do we stop? We can just continue on with the conversation.
Just the video now as well.
Just cut it.
Because it actually, I don't know how to do that on that.
Oh no, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I actually do an iMovie, so I just cut. So when I say go,
The features actually
carry on.
reduced because you've got better muscle tone in the area. Yeah.
But it's better that we didn't record the full thing and then go jackhammers in the background. We're gonna have to bin the entire episode.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Uh-huh.
Episode 5, part 1. So where did you stop?
We'll just play with it. See, now it's corrected.
Hmm?
See, now that's what I mean. So when we stop now, we're going to play.
Oh, I see.
I said about muscle tone in the
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, because the muscle tone's stronger around the area.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that's when you hit it with like a exactly.
Hmm?
And that's when you hit it now with a exactly.
Okay, cool.
I'm so tired.
Let's.
I'm literally dying.
3, 2, 1, and go. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very important point because the more conditioned you are towards your knees being stronger and oh, good catch. And I think that's a very good point because if your knees are stronger, then you're more conditioned, you're able to run faster, you're able to run for longer periods of time, and it's able to take it up to a certain point because obviously as soon as your knees, at least the muscles around it start getting tired,
Yeah.
then the amount of pressure and stress going on to the chondral joints and things like that starts to increase and elevate, which it's not what we want.
No. But at the same time, when it so it's good. So it is good for the joints. Basically, is what we're saying.
Yes.
Is that running? But obviously, like anything, like working at a desk for long hours, like being on a computer for a long period of time, that repetitive strain is what's going to cause injuries. And as we said, I think in our last episode as well, we talk about fatigue, the shoulder blades, the rhomboids around that area. They're not becoming painful because of necessary damage. They're becoming painful because they're weak. They're not being used now. They're deconditioned, and because they're weaker and losing in a tug of war to another muscle that's slightly tighter, such as your pectorals, they're becoming fatigued, and that's what's causing pain because you're having that release of lactic acid in the area. And the exact same thing is going to happen with running if you don't take regular breaks, and it's going to cause that repetitive strain. But also, if we're looking at it from a physiological point of view, when you're running and you're training these muscles, you're increasing tone, you're doing that in your lower extremity. Yes, you're working your abdomen a little bit, you're working the muscles maybe around the ribs to encourage your aerobic breathing, because obviously when you run, you need more oxygen to get into your lungs, so you require more muscle activation to help open your ribs up, but it's still focusing more on your quadriceps, your hamstrings, your calves, your tibialis anterior, all the muscles around your legs. But that's going to then create imbalances.
Yeah.
So if you're doing running and you're like, I'm a keen runner, it's so important that you actually do some form of exercise every week to train your upper body.
Yeah, and I think a way to kind of mitigate that, if you are someone that actually loves running,
Yeah.
a very good way to kind of go, okay, you know what, I want to train a little bit of my upper body into it.
Yeah.
Look at people like Johan Blake. They've
Yeah.
got huge shoulders,
Massive.
development of their pecs, because they sprint.
Yeah.
So a very good way to kind of give a variation to what you're training and what you're conditioning is actually have a bit of variation as to what your training is like. So you did a triathlon, and the way you were kind of saying that you did your running, you did your swimming,
Yeah.
you did your weightlifting, that is variation. So what you're going to have is that nice trifecta
Yeah.
of number one, strengthening.
Yeah.
Number two, cardiovascular health. So cardio being, your heart, your blood.
Yeah.
And then with that, you're also giving stability to your knees, your ankles, strengthening those
But
up.
away from that as well, I was having sessions away stretching
Mhm.
as well, of course,
Mhm.
to help the recovery. help to realign muscle fibers when they've become damaged so the healing process is better, and also to help remove lactic acid.
Yeah.
And also osteopathic treatment I was getting at the same time, just to put that out there.
Was that by Dan?
That was by Dan, colleagues at work,
Okay.
my bosses, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I was just making sure I had regular checkups just to make sure everything was moving as freely as it could be and I wasn't suffering with restrictions. So maintenance on that as well. Like going in for my MOT.
Yeah, and in my opinion, whenever anyone asks me or sort of says, hey, I'm about to do a marathon, I ask, number one, how long is it until you've got the marathon? Usually they say 2 months, 3 months.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. And I say, well, actually, if you're going to have it in 2-3 months' time, my recommendation is come to see me once every week to once every 2 weeks.
Yes.
Because if you want to make sure that, one, your muscles are pretty loose in order for you to do that training and continue on overtraining, because you are going to overtrain.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
You can't run away from it.
Yeah, good. I like that.
Yeah.
That's good plan.
And on top of that,
Yeah.
if you are having any sort of little niggles, we can look after those and
Yes,
make sure that they don't develop into anything worse, because
That's it.
those niggles might actually end up being pop. I ran, felt a pop in my knee, I can't run for a week.
Or it leads to, that niggle may sit in there, you may pass away after a couple of days, but your body then compensates for it, and that's going to just cause a chain reaction of restrictions that could possibly lead to one big event.
But also not being able to train as effectively as you want.
Well, going away a bit from the running aspect,
Yeah.
you've worked with boxers.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
did.
they see how important it is to maintain their fitness because they train so hard.
Mostly, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So even with them, so I worked with Kenny, as I've kind of said in my previous episodes, and my biggest kind of recommendation to him was, look, osteopathy treatment, it's not a matter of come and see me for just when you get injured.
Yeah.
It's actually, you have to come and see me on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
So even Leon's recommendation to Deji was to come and see me 2 times a week.
Yeah.
Number one, for massage treatment, to try and make sure that he is loose enough and able to use that posterior oblique chains. So, the chains essentially from the shoulder down to the opposite side of the lower back, so that you've got that elastic recoil to give you that potential punch. That's the best way to kind of make sure your performance stays on track.
And that's another important thing that you said, Leon, who's a strength and conditioning coach. Is that, if people have those who are training for marathons and things like that, and you've got like a PT, let us know about it. We can work with them as well to create a training program for you, and also look at it and maybe look at your program and go, actually maybe you should rest off that day because it's going to have an effect on these areas. That's the real importance I think osteopathy can have in any form.
It's just being able to work in alliance with all your other professionals that are around.
That's it.
Because at the end of the day, we are trained holistically. We can help you with the training. We can kind of aid you with the mobility. We can speak to your personal trainer and go, well, actually, I think there needs to be a little bit more of this and a little bit more of that. And there was 1 or 2 occasions where I kind of reached out to Leon and said, these were my findings, what is going on here? And then he'd come back to me and go, well, actually, this is what's going on. Which at the time worried me a little bit, and you speak to the person and you go, well, what's going on here? You try to mitigate it, but one thing kind of leads to another. And
so there's a multitude of factors that come into it.
If
the program is followed and people collaborate, it can lead to a beautiful thing, a beautiful training session.
As soon as one of them doesn't want to get involved and actually do those changes, for example, to shoes and making sure that you're wearing the most appropriate shoes for your training, I'm not mentioning any names at all.
But that is it perfectly as well. It's a lot of times when it comes to injuries as well, and this could be absolutely anything. Let's use running as an example. Just because you've bought a nice swanky pair of running shoes doesn't mean it's correct for your foot, doesn't mean it's correct for your gait, doesn't mean it's correct for how you're striking your heel down on the running phase or how you're transitioning through your foot. If you are, the amount of times I've seen people come with foot pain, knee pain or hip pain and they've gone to start running, and one main question I ask is, have you recently bought some new shoes? Have you recently bought some new running trainers? Are your work shoes changed? Because that's all going to affect your gait, which is another word for somebody's walk, their style of walking. And that's going to affect how their heel is striking the ground. It's going to affect how the forces transition up through the ankle, up through the knee, up into the hip, and essentially into the low back. It's going to change the way in which the muscles are being used as well. So, you know, same for people who work at a desk all day with a really unergonomic mouse, keyboard, that kind of stuff. As soon as you switch something that's more ergonomic, takes pressure off your wrist, the benefits a lot better. So, you know.
And there are different shapes to all of the shoes that are pretty much what's going to happen. And I'm speaking from experience here because I did a bit of running. There are specific shoes that are not compatible to everyone.
Oh yeah.
So if you speak to a coach and they haven't seen you run, they haven't seen your gait, they haven't seen how your stride is, your stride length, your power, your weight distribution, the way you kind of land, everything to do with that, they can't recommend a specific shoe.
Yes.
So for me, when I did a marathon, I looked for a shoe which had a very thick heel.
Yeah.
Because I've got, essentially, the way I jog is I really land with my heel, and then I go with the follow through, allowing the mid tarsals going all the way down to the toe off, and I push through.
Yeah.
So I've got a really kind of a full stride, making sure. I try to be as
textbook as it gets.
Yeah. And for me, it was important that actually I'm making sure my heel does not get as much of the impact when it was hitting down.
Yeah, of course.
So support came into play, making sure there was a nice arch support as well. So not just the heel, the mid parts of the arch.
So making sure you had a shoe that fit around what you needed, basically.
Yeah.
That's good. That's really good. Because I remember I bought a pair of shoes. I spent £120 on them, and I used them 4 times because the arch was a bit too much on one of my feet, and it led to me having a lot of plantar fascia pain. So plantar fascia being the tissue that's underneath your foot.
Yeah.
And it's
sole.
So exactly, and it just became incredibly painful to a point where some days I just wouldn't be able to put weight on it for a few minutes because it was so tight.
And it's almost as if the sole's leaving your body.
That's it. You're on fire today. I'm going to put it down to I'm a little bit tired. So I'm not exactly spitting puns left, right, and centre. You're running away with it today.
I'm sorry. Oh.
Yeah. Think about that.
He came in with the clutch right there.
Think about it. So again, injuries with running is a lot of times dependent again on your rehab, on the equipment that you choose, the volume of exercise that you're doing as well, and intensity.
I think as a protocol with a lot of the athletes that I help with running, I tell them, look, you have to focus on whatever event you're doing 3 months prior.
Yeah.
And if you are going to do anything prior to those 3 months, because once those 3 months prior to the event come into play, we're going to have a look at your diet. We're going to have a look at everything else. So I want to try and give you as much of that freedom as possible to go, well, actually, no, I want you to eat whatever you want. I want you to make sure that you're a little bit comfortable within limit.
Yes.
Don't kill yourself. Don't go 20 pounds overweight just because you've got 3 months to lose that. No. Give yourself that freedom to go out to dinners on a weekly basis. But once you're 3 months prior to competition, we need to buckle down and work.
Get you in some turmeric.
And then we start to look at baseline. So, for example, I've got a client who did the London Marathon, and with them, they started off only being able to run 12 kilometers. Now we've got to work it up to 42.
Okay.
So what we did was we looked at how much was left. So 30 kilometers. You've got 3 months, 10 kilometers a month.
Bloody hell.
However, it's even less because you're never going to reach that full 42 kilometers by the end of the event. You're only going to stop at about 37. So 5 kilometers off, because you're going to be able to do that 5 kilometers on the day.
Yes,
Without
well,
any problem.
it's like when Eddie Hall lifted 500 kilograms. He only ever went up to 450. So you knew that if he was able to do that, he'd be able to do another 50 kg on the day. Because again, you have the adrenaline running, and that's the difference. That's what I found in my first try, in my first sprint triathlon. Well, the first one I did was a sprint triathlon. The second one I did was a triathlon. But in my first sprint triathlon, I had such an adrenaline boost that I actually got PBs in every single distance that I did, which I thought was crazy.
Really
so so after doing a 750 meter swim, I did that within 16 minutes.
Wow.
And then I went out the water, did a cycle for 25 kilometers, did that sub an hour, quite far under an hour, I think it was.
Yeah.
It was about 45 minutes. And
That's
then
impressive.
And then after that, I did the 5k run at the end, I think, and I think I did that sub 21.
Wow.
My all-time 5k record is 19 minutes 27.
Yeah.
But
that's
on the day, that was better than
impressive.
I've done before. So I set PBs.
Yeah, that's very impressive.
So I was very happy, very happy with that. But again, that adrenaline dump, because it stops you thinking about the pain in the body as well. There's
And
a lot
you're
of a
seeing
mental
other
aspect
people.
to it.
Yeah, you're seeing a lot of other people running around you, and you're going to go, okay, next person, I want to run in front of them. Next person, I want to run in front of them.
But that's another reason why making sure you get checkups is so important as well. Because if you get niggles, if you get little aches and pains, then your mind will start to go, I'm not going to be able to do this.
Yeah.
It's going to start putting elements of doubt into your head, and you're going to start to worry about those things. And so it's the mental battle as well. Because if you start running, then you start to feel like an ache or a muscle starting to fatigue. You're going to go, that's over.
But that is also why you want to be very progressive with it.
And that's it. That's why you want to build up the training.
Yeah. And for me, so for example, with my athlete, started off at 12.
Yeah.
Then we looked at actually you need to hit 35.
Yeah.
Which is 23 more kilometers.
Yeah.
In 3 months.
Yeah.
You're looking at approximately 7
Yeah.
kilometers every single month. So what you would simply do is every week, let's say 12. If it was 7, it would be 2 kilometers every single week. So you do 12. At the end of that week, you'll do 14. And then at the start of the other week, you're going to do 13. And then you're going to do 2 runs at 13, and then you're going to go to 15. And then you're going to go to 14,
Look at Coach
14,
Gabs in full flow right
16.
now. Yeah.
But then once that month ends, you're going to give yourself a little bit of a break, and you're going to go back to 12, and then 19, and then so on and so forth. So what you're having is you're integrating breaks of relaxation into the training to give yourself that recovery, because that's really important.
Yeah.
But you're always progressing, and the numbers just start to flow so nicely.
Yeah.
And since it's so close together, because you could easily kind of go, you know what, I'm going to jump from 12 kilometers and do 16.
Yeah.
That's a huge jump.
That's a big jump.
However, if you're doing 12, 12, 14, 13, 13, 15, they all will kind of blend into one.
Yes, yeah.
So it's such a small increment that your body just goes, this is easy.
Yeah. But also, it's like important to remember that some days you might have days where you're not as fast as others.
Yeah.
For a lot of it, it's a mental game. So there'll be days where I go out for a 10k and I might not be. I was like 30 seconds under or above what I was last time.
Yeah.
And it's important not to let that get into your head either and go, why am I not as fast today as I was the other day? For me, a lot of time when it comes to training, it's a mental aspect of it. But the other important thing to do with training is to mix it up. So if you're going out running and you're doing 5k, I'll do 8k, then I'll do 10k, then I'll do this, like as you were doing there. Actually, sometimes maybe it's like, okay, today I'm going to do a bit of fartlek training, or I'm going to do some interval training, because that's going to build up speed, that's going to build up muscle endurance. So like what me and my mate Dan did a couple of times is we go out to a field and we start running every minute. So we do about 80% of our normal speed for a minute. And then as soon as the minute came to an end, we do 30 seconds. 30 seconds of full sprint.
Yeah.
Going for it, 100%.
Nice.
And then we go back to 8%. But there was no breaks, there was no walking, it was just jogging and sprinting.
Yeah.
And like at the end of it, you want it to be sick. But you'd see your time go up massively.
if the way I kind of mitigated that, so that's another option. I think that's fantastic. I think if that works for you, that's brilliant. If you're someone who's not got access to a track,
this wasn't on track.
Oh, was this not
this
a track?
was just a field.
Just
a muddy field.
Oh, nice. Oh my god, that's not exactly great to run on.
It's no. So not a muddy field, but like it was just a field.
Okay.
Like a football field, like that kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. The other way is if you are kind of hitting a little bit of a wall emotionally and mentally in regards to, you know what, I had a really bad time.
Yeah.
What I told them is, okay, for the next 2 days, you're not going to run.
Yes.
But within those next 2 days, you're actually going to do a little bit of a carb load.
Yeah.
So you're going to increase the amount of carbs by about almost 50 grams.
Yeah.
Depending on how tall you are and your weight, measurements, la-di-da-di-da. Increase by about 50 grams every single day. And you're going to go off for a run, same sort of thing. And 9 times out of 10, they will come back and go, that was a better run.
Yeah.
It was a better time.
Another thing that I normally see in clinic as well, and people go, oh, running's bad for me, is if they've had an injury, they're recovered, and then they go back to running 10k straight away. And let's say they've had, let's say a few weeks or a month off, so their body again, it's amazing how quickly the body can decondition itself or get used to muscles being tight chronically, strained. And then they go back to it and they're like, oh, I came back again. And it was like, at what kilometre did it come back? And it was like, well, it was in the last, I had it the other day, it was like on the last 8 to 9. And like, the first 8 were good. And I was like, because you're pushing yourself too much too quickly, just build back up slowly. You know, yes, you may have a race coming up in the next few months, but you're better off going back into it slowly, giving your body time to heal, than rushing the process and causing injury and setting yourself back again.
That's not even in cardiovascular health alone. So with me, if I'm not training and I stop training for about even a week, okay, and I'm going to give a very easy example. I love my bench press, okay? I love my bench press.
You do love your bench press.
So whenever I bench, I can maybe hit around 115 on a good day. If I'm off for a week, it goes down to about 95.
True.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
It's so quick, 20 kilos off of your bench in just a week.
It's ridiculous. And it also depends how, again, go back to diet, what you've kind of been eating, you've been hydrated, what's your sleep been like, what's the muscle recovery being like in that time that you've had off as well. It's all going to have an effect on those areas. Yeah. And it's going to have an effect on what you can bench. Like some people will find that they're actually better benching in the evening after they've had a full day of food, had a full day of eating and stuff like that.
And then the next day they come back and you've been in a sort of caloric surplus, you've got all of that glycogen, which is glucose, sugar in your muscle, and you kind of go back and you go, oh everything feels so light. That's when you just put a couple of weights on and you just...
That's a good day. But then again, like you'll go back one day and you may not be able to lift as much, and it's important that, again, you don't let that come into your day mentally.
Yeah, and you kind of go, okay, that's a very good sign that I think today needs to be a little bit of a rest day. You're not going to go as heavy, you're going to focus on repetition, you're going to focus on technique, and just try and enjoy the workout as much as you can, knowing it's not a day for PEBs.
So to sum it up, is running bad for you?
It depends.
No, it don't. No, running is not bad for you. Running is not bad for you.
No,
and anything isn't bad for you as long as you do the right things for it.
Yeah.
You sat at a desk for hours on end, just get up every half an hour and it will sort a lot of your problems out. If you manage yourself well, everything is fine.
So the reason why I said it depends is because obviously it all depends on how you kind of do the running.
Of course.
If you push yourself and you kill yourself running, then no, running is not good.
If you end up overload training, you're more likely to cause injury, and you're more likely to come to your osteopath crying about it.
But if you do it correctly, no, running is not bad for you.
There's a lot of great health benefits that come out of it, as we said, reducing diabetes, reducing cardiovascular injuries, reducing risk of cancer actually in a lot of studies.
Yeah, because obviously you're better at mitigating lactic acid and you're increasing the amount of oxygen flow around the body because your cardiovascular system is so much more efficient.
Yes.
And with a lot of cancers, they've kind of understood that cell health is a huge component into it.
Massively.
Cell dehydration, you're looking at anything to do with the mitochondria, and just those little bits and pieces make a huge difference at how your body is able to constantly replicate those cells. Once those cells break down, how efficient is it at making sure it's developing the amount of cells that it requires and not over creating those
Yeah,
cells,
of course.
because that's what cancer is.
Yeah.
The overproduction of a specific cell, which then becomes cancer.
So those are the fantastic benefits out of it. But again, as we say, if you overload training correctly, you're at more risk of suffering from things like runner's knee, iliotibial band syndrome,
George speaks from experience.
plantar fasciitis, cartilage damage to your knee, things like that. So it's really important that you just check in with your PT, check in with your osteopath, check in with your physio, check in with your chiropractor, and just go through your running routine with them, especially if you know you're picking up your training recently, or you haven't done it before, or haven't done it for a while.
And I'm going to finish off with a little bit of a small point. Even though we have, I think a relatively
A healthy
quite
knowledge
wealthy
base.
bit of knowledge,
Yeah.
we still get injured.
We still get, so, osteopaths are humans. We're prone to injury.
Yeah.
We actually have a job that is very physical.
Yeah.
And and it is repetitive strain. A lot of osteopaths will suffer with arthritic change or I've had carpal tunnel in my wrist.
Mm-hmm.
I've trained, and some people are just more injury prone as well.
Yeah.
And sadly, I'm one of those people. I look at a sport and I get injured watching it. But that's the other thing. Some people are going to be more prone to injury, and again, we're likely to be prone. But at the same time, we've understood what happens, and we carry out the correct rehabilitation to get
which
back
is
quicker.
episode number 4.
Yes, exactly. Go back and watch it if you haven't already. But yeah, I think that's a fair place to leave it for today.
Yeah.
Running isn't bad for you.
Well, everyone, I hope you've started off your new year to a great start.
Yeah.
I hope
Get out there and start running, guys.
Exactly. New year resolutions for everyone. And I hope that actually everyone's had a good Christmas. There's a lot of people actually speaking about mental health.
Yeah.
So that's going to be one of the episodes soon.
Yeah.
Because
Mythbusters coming back again.
yeah, I think it's very prone that at the end of the year and the start of the new year, everyone kind of goes through a little bit of mental health problems.
Yeah.
So look, we're going to have a little word about that.
Yeah, for sure.
And I hope that everyone starts the new year in a nice and positive manner, and everyone just enjoy January.
Enjoy January. Or
Peace out.
January. Cheers.